If you're a Portuguese speaker trying to learn English, you already know the grammar can feel, well, a little overwhelming. But what if there was a tool that laid it all out for you visually, kind of like a roadmap to fluency? Today, we're diving into the Professor Mathias Nau English Table, a really fascinating visual guide that's all about decoding English sentence structure.
So, why do you even need a tool like this? Well, it all comes down to a pretty shocking difference. Get this. In Portuguese, a single verb can have up to 72 different forms. 72. But in English, just 5. That one little fact tells you everything you need to know about where you should be focusing your energy.
And that's the whole point, right? The real challenge with English isn't memorizing dozens and dozens of verb endings. The real key, the secret to fluency, is getting a feel for the underlying structure. You see, English is a structural language, and this table, it's designed to make that hidden structure totally visible. Okay, so let's take a little tour of the table itself, shall we? We're going to start with what Professor Nau calls the hands. This section right here is your key to one of the most important concepts for building English sentences, auxiliary verbs. Now, the concept might sound complicated, but it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. An auxiliary verb is just a helping verb. That's its whole job, to work with the main verb in the sentence, to show the tense, or to help you build a question or a negative sentence. Think of them as the support crew for your main action. So how do you actually use it? Well, it's a beautifully simple process. You just start with your phrase in Portuguese, something like, Eu tenho trabalhado. Then you find that example on the table, and it points you directly to the auxiliary verb you need. In this case, it's have. From there, you just follow the sentence structure it gives you. It's a direct path from your idea to a perfectly correct English sentence. And here's the best part. It completely removes all the guesswork. For anyone who's ever sat there wondering, wait, do I use do or does? Is it have or has? This table just solves that for you. It clearly maps out which auxiliary to use for each person. I, you, he, she, it, all of them. No more memorization, just a quick look. It's that easy. All right, let's move on down to the feet of the table. This part handles two really crucial things: modal verbs, which add all those specific shades of meaning, and the compound tenses. This is where English starts to get really expressive and nuanced. So here's a really important distinction to make: the difference between an auxiliary and a modal verb. Remember, auxiliaries are the construction workers. They just help build the sentence structure. Modals, on the other hand, they show up with their own personality. They bring their own meaning to the party, adding ideas like ability, permission, or advice. They aren't just grammar tools, they're words packed with intention. For instance, if you want to talk about ability, the table points you to can. If you're expressing a preference, it guides you to would. Need to give some advice? It's should. The table translates the idea behind your phrase directly into the correct English modal verb. And that's why it's so powerful. It lets you skip all the complex grammar rules and go straight to the meaning you want to get across. Okay, ready for this? Let's flip the table over. The entire back is dedicated to a topic that trips up so many learners: how to form questions in English. The rules can seem kind of random, but Professor Nau has a system to make it all click into place. And to do it, he uses this really powerful analogy. He calls it the Berlin Wall of English questions. It's a simple idea that creates this fundamental dividing line, and honestly, it explains almost all the confusion people have with question structure. So here are the two sides of that wall. On one side, you've got questions that do not have a subject, and on the other side, questions that do. Now, why does this matter so much? Because the grammatical structure you need to use is completely different depending on which side of the wall your question is on. The table separates them visually, so you always know exactly which rulebook you need to follow. And for those of you who want to go even deeper, the back of the table is an absolute treasure trove. It's got the most common interrogative pronouns, who, what, where, when, plus a really detailed grammatical analysis and a complete summary of all the question structures. It's all right there. So let's kind of bring this all together. When you look at the whole system, you start to realize it's not some dense rule book that you have to memorize. No, it's way more practical than that. It's basically your personal map to the structure of English. It all comes back to this one central idea. English is a structural language, And once you stop trying to translate word for word and you start to see the patterns, the blueprint of the language, it just opens up in a completely new way. Ultimately, what this table does is it takes something that's totally abstract and invisible, the rules of English grammar, and it makes it tangible. It makes it real. You can literally trace the path of a sentence with your finger, which turns the structure into something you can actually see and follow, not just something you have to try and remember. Which really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. What if the real key to mastering a new language isn't just about cramming more words and more rules into your brain, but about finally being able to see its blueprint?